poetry, radio, verse. It's all about the D. Desire, discipline, dedication. I know what you were thinking, savages, but that ain't it. Let's go. Our 4-part National Poetry Month Favorite Poems series.
Art shouldn't be simply decoration. It's not just about beauty.
He's not just reciting his poetry, like he's actually performing.
You don't have to tie up your poems in the end with a bow. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. I am James Hamilton, and this is Versed, your home for poetry on the radio. As always, we are coming to you from the hub of Midwest Poetry, the WBOM full-service radio studios located inside the basement of the Mendelssohn Center for the Performing Arts in Rockford, Illinois. Today we are picking up with part 3 of our 4-part National Poetry Month series, Favorite Poems. All right, let's go on to the next poem. This is one of mine, Split. Will Wright, best name in poetry.
Split, right down the very middle. Two sides of my being fighting for control over which side I'm choosing to be today. The left side, broken down and beaten. The right wouldn't dare to stop dreaming. Is this even? Like I can't take the best each has to offer and choose to keep them. Every good has its bad, but I'm starting to feel weak and like I'm taking the worst of both, and the good is what I'm leaving behind. But maybe that's just the devil talking at this time. Left. My cup is half empty, and I'm not even sure I deserve a refill, because I've poured away my better half, and all I'm left with is having to clean up the spill. Cheap liquor, bad decisions, and even cheaper thrills. Bills are piling up, and the only thing I can think about is killing myself. Yeah, it's dark, but let's not pretend like we got nyctophobia, because I'm sure you've been here a time or two. You telling me you've never experienced pandemonium? I'm just a man walking through the shadow of his own being. Others are afraid to show theirs, but mine isn't afraid for you to be seeing. Out on open display, but don't you think about getting close, because when this devil is out to play, the damage he intends to cause is of the utmost. He took his owner to the grave, and you have the audacity to think you're safe? Please, with all due respect, my demons eat yours for breakfast like Honey Nut Cheerios or Frosted Flakes. Right. But on this side, this guy, shoo, he's utterly divine. His glass is half full, and with the snap of his fingers, it refills and even turns into wine. In due time, you'll come to find that he's speaking the truth according to the grand design. And the only thing he's asking you is, would you be mine? Or just come to use me when you're feeling a little behind? Greatness doesn't come easy. And in case you lost your mind and need to be reminded, this side doesn't ever leave. It'll be here waiting for you, right where you need it to be. Just keep your head high and your eyes to these skies, because you've never been without greatness. It's only been hidden in these skies. And these guys, each and every one of them, yeah, they got it. A little piece of light inside, everybody a divine prophet. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and empty out your pockets, but do understand that your penance is not required. He sees you for how you feel, and my love for you never retires. It's time to rise and raise this empire. This world is nothing less than your spoken word, but I don't have to preach that to this choir.
Will Wright. Will Wright. The reason this is on my list, this is another formative poem, for sure. And I had forgotten about working on this one with him when he was creating it until I had dinner with him this week. And he reminded me, he went, well, you know, you're very responsible for the creation. And then I remembered us going through that. The other thing is, this poem is always, they talk about top of the mind awareness. I think about this poem a lot because I spend time touring, performing with Shane Turing, the poet, and Shane mentions this, that first line, split right down the middle, like every time I'm around him. He mentions this.
Wow.
Because he was actually privy to a lot of the creative process for this as well. And Will right now is like blowing up. He's blowing up. He's performed his first feature up in Milwaukee recently. I know he's doing one here in Rockford at your event soon.
Right.
So this is another example for me of that formative piece. Wrote it early in his, writing career, and it's indicative of his stuff going forward. So.
Well, I think he'd been writing poetry, so he discovered us.
Yeah.
We didn't discover him.
Yeah.
We were performing at Clown Bar, and he was in the audience.
Yeah.
And he came up to me and was like, "Hey, I'm a poet. How do I connect with the poetry community in this town?" And I said, "You may have come to the right person." So that's how he discovered us. And what a find! This guy is amazing.
Amazing. And when I talk about it being a formative piece, this was an unfinished piece that he had wrote well before he had started coming out and performing. And he would come and do bits and pieces of it at the open mics in town. And he was trying to stitch it together. And that's when, he had come out and was performing. And then we had all worked together, Shane and I, to help him kind of push this thing together. And I'd forgotten all about that until I had dinner with him like 2 nights ago. And that it was from that early in his writing career. It was something that had been there for a long time. Rachel, what do you got about Split?
I just thought it was really hard-hitting about, trying to beat out negative thoughts and your negative habits and trying to grow out of them. And even sometimes, no matter how much you're trying and no matter how much you're growing and putting into that, and even if you are making a lot of progress with it, sometimes it's still hard to forgive yourself, and sometimes it's still hard to see yourself past your darker self.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, anything else you have about Split?
It takes away from all the trite and overused cliches about personality. It's such a great expression of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the two selves. I love the way it does that. And I love, and I've done it several times to talk about it this morning, playfulness. Mm-hmm. It's a playful poem, even though it talks about, this is a poem that talks about committing suicide. But there's a playfulness to the poem. And I love being able to do that, and art that accomplishes both.
So I'm going to refer to the episode with from season 1 with Maisie and Rain Dog. We talked with Rain Dog about where he will have bits and pieces out there and how he stitches them together into one poem. And Maisie right away chimed in and she went, "Yes, totally." And this reminds me of that. Will had literally come to me and said, I got this. It was in 3 pieces. And he was reading them as 3 separate poems at the time.
Right.
And he said, how do we do this? And how we stitch that all together. I call it a formative poem because when you listen to this, it is so authentically Will Wright for everything that comes after it again.
Right.
You hear it and you go, I know who that is, without anybody telling me. I know his voice, I know his structure, I know his cadence, I know the way he assembled that poem together, and I hear it in everything that came after it.
He employs very effectively both meter and rhyme.
Yeah, he's a bar poet. He's got bars.
Right. And I'm very much the free verse poet, and so I struggle with those things. He just nails it, and he does it here. In this piece, his rhymes are occasional. It's not like there's a rhyme scheme. It's not like it's every line or something like that. But it's very effective rhyming. When it's employed, it brings the words home.
See, that's what I'm getting at, is there is structure to this poem. Having worked on it with him, there is. But it is so well done that you don't catch it unless you sit and you look at it. If you take those 3 parts and you put them next to each other, it occurs. And there's one we're going to talk about from Obbs that does the same thing. And it's very subtle, and it sounds like narrative or free verse or something that has no structure, but
Right.
there is. And Will is super good at that with his poems. The newer stuff that he writes, he does that. It will still fall in the same section of the stanza. You just don't notice.
See-
It's not overt.
See, now I'm going to whine a little bit. I've read some poems. I've got mad. I made her send me that in writing, and as a student, I read poetry and I still try to read it all the time. But so many of the poets we're talking about now, I've only heard out loud to date.
Right.
So I've never seen this poem in writing,
Right.
and I feel disabled in being able to discern those things. But that's cool. You participated in the crafting of the poem, so you're aware of that. That's really interesting.
Well, I think the other thing, and we've talked about on this show a lot about the difference between page and stage, and how when it comes from the stage, you're getting it how the poet wants you to have it.
Right.
Will wants you to get this poem the way he's delivering it to you.
Right.
Will eventually we be able to look at it on paper and dissect it in that
Right.
manner? Yeah. And that says a lot about what we've talked about with page poets, is that
Right.
then you get it and you get to experience it in your own way and
Right.
interpret it. I don't think that knowing that there is a structure to that poem is going to make you like it even less or
Right.
even more. That poem, if I had it in front of me on a piece of paper, I'm going to read it and I'm going to hear Will's voice in my head when I read it. I think it's, so we got page versus stage, left brain, right brain, split right down the middle.
Wow. You are good. You brought that home, poet.
The other thing about him, we were talking this morning about poets and how, when you meet artists, most of them are pretty nice people. I have never saw Will come into a room where he wasn't smiling or animated. He's a positive guy. He's a happy guy.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah. All right, moving on to the next one. Another one of mine, Chad or Rain Dog.
Dog, you didn't. You didn't.
I had to. Built for Suffering.
I was built for suffering. Steel edges and sharp lines glittering, covered in blood, cleansed with tears, bright flares of cold pain that no longer hold the power they used to, because I was built for joy. Found friends flowing new lines like wrought iron filigree, fine like moco or tattoos of core, waves, sky, and fire. Sunflowers soft like blankets, like cuddles and kisses and baby laughs. And yet I was built for sorrow, to carry the memory of death, lost love, lost sons, lost souls unknown, and the bitter taste of ash as the whole world burns, lost in the sigh of a last soft breath as innocence dies. And yet I was built for love, to know what it is to touch souls, find homes, learn to let go, to move on and know. This is what it is to give love. This is what it is to receive love. This is what it is to be love. Knowing how to love is knowing how to carry pain. And it is in this way that I gladly, gloriously, proudly say, I was built for suffering.
So I just want to say this. We had mentioned about Tut, where I could have picked any one of his poems and we could have pretty much talked about him in the same way. Rain Dog, same way. All of his stuff is really good. And I've performed with him as much or more than any of the other artists that I know. I just love Rain Dog. It's a bromance.
Right.
And I will own that shit till I die.
Well, I had that bromance at that open mic we did at a brewery in Madison.
Yeah, showcase.
Yeah. And yeah, it wasn't an open mic, although he and I were open mic participants. It was
Yeah.
your showcase.
Yeah.
But I tell you, my memory of that open mic is of Rain Dog persevering in the face of indifference from the audience and performing for us, the other poets. And I loved that. And then my moment was C.G. Clearing and I huddled up with him.
DG Clearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
My moment from that event was afterwards, amidst the din, DG Clearing and I huddled with Rain Dog as Rain Dog showed us his revision of a poem and went over it with us. I mean, that was an artist moment, and I felt like this is my art. This is doing my art, and this is a phenomenal artist explaining what his process to it. And I just loved that.
Yep. Rachel?
Yeah, I actually really, really love this piece. It's just kind of the concept of, you don't really think about it until you're the one in the situation, but healing from pain and healing from trauma, mental illness, anything, it's almost kind of scary in a way, because, you know, for one, it's like, wait, well, who am I outside of this person? And then in order to get to that place, you're not ever going to just lose the pain. You have to learn how to live with it. And I don't want to just be like, oh, it's so hard. But I mean, for lack of, more insightful terms, like it is really hard.
It is. And, the thing is, so we say art imitates life, life imitates art. And I mentioned when we talked about Maisie's soup can size thoughts that I picture Warhol's paintings, right? That it draws that. When I hear him do this and I start reflecting on what he's saying, for some reason in my head, I hear Nazareth, love hurts.
Oh, wow.
I hear in my head, right? That song feels like bleeding. When he... talks about love in this and suffering in this, I feel like I'm bleeding.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, now I had an echo, and it's more subtle than that. I had an echo of Will Wright's Split.
Yeah, a little bit.
In the duality here, the suffering and the joy.
Yeah.
And I wrote, this gets its coherence from its structure.
Yes.
Yeah, in pairing those but opposing them.
And he, Rain Dog is another one of those poets that is a writer first. He is a writer first, and where a piece may seem so smooth and so natural and things like that, trust me, this guy sits and edits and edits and edits ad nauseum to make it perfect for him. He's a craftsman and a writer first and foremost. He really is.
And I really felt this poem, talk about structure, was circular.
Yeah.
He brought it back at the end, almost to the point of the entire poem being a tautology. I mean, you talk about, that's editing and that's craft.
That's what he does. And we've mentioned on here, I know somebody has talked to you and said, you don't have to tie up your poems in the end with a bow. That is where the craftsmanship and the time spent in editing that admittedly I don't do. Okay. Right. Mine comes out.
He's
more
about something different.
He's about something totally different. He doesn't do that. It's not tied up neatly in a bow. It's not, but it feels circular.
It
does. It feels like it would have been easy to do. It would have been easy to put a bow on it at the end and do that, but he doesn't.
Right.
And I believe in this case, it's a conscious decision not to.
Right.
Or at least it was considered.
Yeah. I guess I could have said it would have been an easy poem to do as a tautology.
Yeah.
And he didn't. I said it feels like it.
Yeah.
But it's so much more complex and nuanced than
and that's just him, right? He's that complex. He's just a cool guy. Yeah, right. He's just a cool guy. All right, moving on. The next one is one of yours, Rachel. No Shelter from our Schrodinger's poet laureate, Tom Cannon.
She embraced good living like a rainstorm. Having lost the need to wreck her innocence like a wave attacking a sandcastle, she only drank then and now to do the rain dance, hands outreached to catch droplets of peace. Alcohol and drugs had been a day at the beach that left her raw and burned. The rain turned cold. Maybe it began the week after the baby is born, when he stopped helping out. The gale of old boyfriends picked up, tore at her clothes, taunted her with whispered torrents. In the empty house, she tried to warm herself enough to stop shivering. Embraced by her own naked arms, good living trailed off her into puddles.
All right, so this one really kind of hit me, And, we're going to go back to I have a very different outlook on life with my demographic. So the poem just kind of follows this lady who, left her young, wild and free party life. And now, she went to the domestic housewife. And it turns out both lives are just as empty and, kind of lonely. And that is something that a lot of women have been talking about more and more recently, is how, we're finally coming out of that white picket fence kind of nuclear family. And we're saying like, hey, none of those wives and women were actually happy. They were just, on some coke back then, but
Right.
sipping the brandy when they're cooking, but so really, we're saying like that kind of life isn't really fulfilling for a majority of women. And a lot of women who are in marriages and stuff have been talking out about how once you get married, a lot of times the husbands will just kind of change. They, just become kind of neglectful. Like even in the poem, he mentions after she had the baby, the husband kind of, got distant and just stuff like that. And it just kind of reminds me of my own fear about ending up in one of those kind of domesticated lifestyles where I have all this responsibility to take care of everyone else's emotional, mental, physical welfare, but then no one's looking out for me. Or like those videos that have been going around like around Christmas time now, where the moms show that, oh yeah, here's everyone's stockings and nobody filled mine. My husband didn't do shit.
Right.
Kids didn't think about it.
That's so insightful. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Because the longer and longer that I know Tom, I did not see this the first time I saw him, but now it's like becoming more and more prevalent when I look at his work. He speaks really, really well for young women.
He does.
I'll
give it to him.
That was the question I was going to ask Rachel.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, this was written by a man. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I am kind of I mean, I know I've watched the show. I know what kind of influences, but I wonder, like, really, like, how he kind of got into the mindset that he's able to really connect with, like, a whole different demographic.
So here's the thing. His last book is called No More Ugly Girls.
Yeah.
And it's about adolescent girls and the whole and that whole culture and everything wrapped around that, the patriot, all of that. And I have not admittedly read the whole thing. I've read about 3/4 of it. And but there again, that he seems, I don't know because I haven't lived this one.
Right.
But he seems to me like he really has captured it. And I find myself wanting to ask him, where did you get this from?
There are whole genres of movies and novels about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, how does a man of our age capture that so effectively? Although he is talking about mid 20th century in a way, which isn't now. You know what I'm saying? But then you and I were talking in the car on the way here. Yeah. How much have gender roles really moved forward,
right,
and how much has feminism accomplished in terms of changing the lot of women in this culture?
True. The other thing I'll say is, as a writer, and Tom is another one of those that he's a writer first. As a writer, we all like to think we can write, like as a male writer, we like to think we can write good female characters, and the truth is most of us can't.
Right.
And I think there's women writers the same way. I think there's women writers that think that they can write good male characters and can't.
Right.
But Tom, so I guess what I'm saying is, as a writer, he's done it. He's done it, and he's pretty good at it. And the other thing I'll say, my first note about this piece is he tells that life story, the depth of that in 38 seconds. That poem is 38 seconds long.
Yeah.
I forgot about
that.
38 seconds.
That is something else I really liked about just like Tom's pieces in general, is they're very short, and sometimes, it's like it's good to just have something short that you can just kind of process right away. And I'm not saying it's not deep or it's shallow. I'm saying it's just easier to, kind of process when it's, less than a minute. And it's like, you get the full effect of enjoying a piece of art, piece of poetry, but you're not like sitting there for 5 minutes like, okay, so that meant that, and that was a
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
So there was a thing going around for a while. It was like 5-word horror stories or something
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, yeah. I used
there's
to
like-
teach that.
Yeah, there's like an
yeah.
entire
I did that
Reddit
as a writing
section.
exercise, and there are books of those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Well,
An entire Reddit.
Well, you know,
everything.
before you continue and make the point, it was Ernest Hemingway who was on a radio show who was asked, what's the shortest novel you can write? And he said, for sale, it was a 6-word, for sale, baby shoes never used.
right.
That has an
Right.
entire plot.
Yeah.
Anyway, so continue.
But yeah, same thing. Yeah, I didn't really have a point. I was just kind of meandering through my brain. So
Oh, yeah, well, that's kind of like this radio show.
right.
But Tom, so what you described, this poem is a crystal. It's not
yeah.
a whole gem. This poem is a little crystal. It's crystal clear, and it captures something perfectly.
And in the debate, that we've had on the show a bunch, page versus stage, I think the stage poets have a tendency, I know that I do, have a tendency to, now I just do it unconsciously. I write a piece and I go, I can tell you by looking at it, it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds to 4 minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood. And there's a certain amount of lines. And I think that we get locked into that where Tom... I've heard Tom do pieces that are 3 or 4 minutes long. I've also heard him encapsulate a life in 38 seconds.
Right. Well, and one of the reasons I appreciate Tom's poetry is I'm a believer in accessibility.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the impenetrable poem, the poem where you read it and you go, "Oh my gosh, I know there's a lot there and I'm never going to get it." You know, I don't love that. I love more accessible. That's my middle brow self, I think. I love the more accessible poems.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was kind of feeling with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His stuff is all like that, and I appreciate it. I admire it. That's the way I try to write.
Yeah.
When I romanticize the ordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Next one is one of mine. Friend from up in Green Bay. I am RRTUT, the poetic EMCEE.
I am accepting something that I cannot change. I am just a vivid of your imagination. I am accepting something that I cannot change, and I can change what it is that'll make me feel better. See, love is the ultimate law of life. An eye for an eye can make the whole world blind. Optimistic as a human being, perseveration is spring as the spirit starts to scream. Well, here's a test for your greatness. Having the ability to forgive is the one true memory. As I stand on the shore, listen to seashells talk about being bored as lightning dance across the skies. I'm having a glimpse in the present and the future time. All aboard the heavenly craft of the dead secrets to the dark silence. I am just a memory in time, having access to the outer limit from the third dimension of the mind. I am sitting down with A1, having a conversation on a spiritual journey. As my soul began to burn like fire, I clench my teeth and clutch my fists, and I ask myself, what am I mad about? Why am I mad about it? Is it the expectation of our races right in our faces? We complain, we confuse. Oh, we don't want to hear it until it's on the news or the doorsteps of our emotions. I'm in a final countdown, racing against time. For every step that I take, that master force is spreading abroad. I'm coming from Chicago, where the streets have been put two apart. Fools are on stages with their rude behavior, and they dreaming that money's gonna save them. Well, a new day would dawn for a new exchange, expecting the road to continue. Once again, open arms with full of charm, harming around the corner, waiting for you to pass so it can snatch you into his grips to implant the device. Everybody's looking for something. Everybody's looking for something as we perish like dust in the wind. I am not pop, I am soul. I am not looking to be sold. No diamond, no platinum, no gold. They are all in me. The sun sunbeam can hit me 1,000 times and it wouldn't pierce my skin. I am the beginning like all human beings. Like Ripley's, believe it or not, all of our heads are on the chopping block, while rules are in order that's intended for our sons and our daughters. And I'm praying for something to change within the ignorant hearts of the ignorant minds. There is the veil over the ears, there is the veil over the eyes. Some individuals are walking around deaf, dumb, and blind. I am not. I am just a vivid of your imagination. I am.
Okay, so it was only yesterday that I caught on. I was baffled when I heard his name when he was on the show.
Sure.
EMCEE
Yep.
is the spelling of the initials MC.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't catch that before, which is Master of Ceremonies.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, well, the light bulb goes on really slowly sometimes for this guy. So
this was when I met Ralph a couple of years ago, this was the first piece I heard him do at the historic Tarleton Theater up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I feel the same way hearing it yesterday as I did the first time I heard it. Like a lot of other people, when you hear Tut for the first time, you go, what the fuck did I just hear? Which, well, and all of that. He's just a master of his craft, doing what he does. From a performance or an oration standpoint, spoken word or performative entertainment standpoint, dude is just polished. What were your thoughts, Paul?
Well, first of all, he slips into preacher pronunciation, both word choice and the way he performs the poems.
Yeah.
It isn't, the entire piece isn't that way, but you can hear it.
Yeah.
And I really loved that. And so the phrase that really grabbed me, blew me away, the gut punch was, an eye for an eye can make the world blind.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Yeah, that's good.
And that is rejecting the Old Testament, right? Because the Old Testament is an eye for an eye, and he is saying, whoa, wait a minute.
And he's a Muslim.
Oh, I didn't. Well, but the Old Testament is part of their religion.
Exactly. That's what I just clarified. Yeah, for sure. Rachel, what were your thoughts about I Am?
So I haven't seen him perform, so I can't really talk about the visual aspect, but from hearing him, he really draws you in with his presentation, just the way, he uses his cadence, his volume controls. Another thing, going, that's something that's really subtle that I think a lot of people don't really pay attention to, is your volume control and how it can really impact things.
Dynamics.
The dynamics. So, in all of his pieces, actually, I just think he's not just reciting his poetry, like he's actually performing when he's presenting.
Yep.
So that's really what struck me most about just all of his pieces, and then this one, and also just the way he presents it it just draws you in, and it just makes you interested.
Mm-hmm. Right. I could have picked any one of his pieces. I think to that end,
right.
I picked I Am because it was the first one that I had heard him do years ago when I met him, the night I met him. But you're right. All of the pieces are representative of what he does. No question about that. There have been questions, word choice and things like that, and we're artists, so sometimes we pick a word that isn't necessarily the correct word, but it's the word that we wanted to use,
or that fits to your mind. Vivid of your imagination,
right? And I have asked him about that, and I'm not gonna articulate his answer because I don't remember exactly what he said, but I can tell you this. When I heard it the first time, I went, that's not the right word.
Right. Or the right use of that word.
Exactly.
As it's part of speech.
But what I can tell you is, after we had a conversation about it, I believed it to be the right word.
Right.
That's all I can say. I can't tell you how that conversation went, and I can tell you that it was about a 45-minute drive where we went, and when we finished, I went, I understand.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
So,
So, anything else about I am?
well, I loved how at some point it slips into a really staccato machine gun delivery.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a mode he can get in and use exceedingly effectively.
Yeah.
And he does it in parts of that piece.
Yeah,
So I love that.
We talked about that on the episode that he was on, how when he came on New Eurekan Poets Cafe for the first time and did that, bada, 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 you know, ran his bars off. I think it was Mary Ann from Connecticut. She actually said the words, "What the fuck just happened?" That's what she said. Like, you know,
Right.
if you haven't been on New Eurekan, it's a cipher. There, you know, after the poet reads, everyone is up on the screen, and the host says, "What did you think?" And everyone was dead silent. And then Mary Ann said, "What the fuck did I just?" She was like, "Yeah."
Well,
so it was, yeah,
and I have to say, so I've seen him perform once.
yeah,
And it was here after he was on the show.
Right.
It was that night at the Nordloff.
yeah,
So I was prepared,
yeah,
but I was also awed
yeah,
because you want to talk about a stage presence.
yeah. He definitely has an entertainment IQ.
I mean,
as well.
he's kind of he got up there, and I forgot about everything else that happened that night. Like when he was on, he was the world. So yeah.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to the next one. This is one from Paul's list. This is Poisonous Patriarch from King Musa.
I usually don't have time to write. And I finally got time to write. The first thing he wrote was baby blooms backwards, biting brass bells, boastfully barring about bravery. I said, boy, don't you think you being a bit much? Usually when I start these off, I'll say something along the lines of, my name is King Musa and I'm a hip hop artist, and at the age of 14, I was directly impacted. Every single time I utter those lies, I'm met with stares of admiration. You wonder why the lie. Thinking back as far as I could remember, I remember entering this illuminated stroke of God always off balance, void of any masculine match. I had no rhyme to my reason, no reassurance of my resilience, the man of my mannerisms and moves, that DJ to my groove. All the while, my curiosity was being held captive in Dixon, Illinois. And here's where the lie lies. See, if I was to proclaim at 14 I was directly impacted by this system, then I'd be capping. Because when you black, like high blood pressure, heart disease, and poverty, prison also seems to be hereditary. So as a child with an incarcerated parent, I had a 3 in 4 chance of ending up around 3 or 4 friends with that gun in my hand, or around a strange man wearing orange skins, aggressively waving monadnock hardwood at other grown men, yelling, I need you closer. I mean so close that your nuts is in his hands, so much so that dick to butt has become their slogan. Meanwhile, I'm 412 miles away from the only love I've ever known. And see, mother, these are the experiences I pulled from trying to convince you that I've grown. Because didn't patriarchy command that you not a man until you got to do it on your own? Or is it that moment we learned the art of suppression? Or maybe it's measured by the amount of women we can have soft from erection. See, these are all questions I wish I could call up my father and ask him. But these all will remain unanswered, for 2 years ago, I laid eyes on my father for the first time as he laid in a casket. Poison is patriarchy, people.
Why is this one on your list, Paul?
Okay, we're going to have to cut this pause out because I was trying to read my notes. I always try to read my notes in advance, which is difficult, and I didn't get a chance.
So I'll tell you what, why don't we go over to Rachel first? She can talk about it while you get gathered.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. So something I really liked about this is that it felt very
Biographical.
biographical. Yeah.
Yep.
So after listening to it, I haven't met King Musa, but it's like I know someone, by listening to their art, by listening to this piece where he just kind of gave his life story, and all of a sudden it's like, where someone's coming from, you understand their viewpoint of life and why they have that viewpoint. It's just kind of really a piece that shows how you can understand each other through art.
Yeah, I think that this is an encapsulation of fatherless kid going to prison, making mistakes, and the detriment that is a society where there's a lot of absent fathers and the effect that has on people. Do you get you collected?
Yeah, I think what I really liked about it was how he describes. So we talked about Boy Genius earlier today.
Yeah.
So Boy Genius has a song that talks about the difficulty of meeting fan expectations, or how fans take the bits of your art that you put out there and then they idealize you or it or your life from that, and how it's impossible then to live up to that. And I see that in this piece where he's talking about where he does certain pieces and they're met with stares of admiration. And that's alienating for him, that people listen to his poems and then look at him idealizing him.
I think that's what Rachel was talking about, is so in a very short, concise amount of time that this poem runs for, it shows, like you said, where he's been. It shows that he grew up without a father. It shows that he got incarcerated, all of that. And it does paint a picture of his life in a very compact package. And I like that. He's saying a lot in a very small way. Now, creatively, I love the message. This is perhaps the hardest piece that I've sat when we recorded to listen to.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with the subject matter. It is 100% the creative choices and the delivery.
Really?
And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it in a bad way, but there is some. So one of the creative choices, the person. So the he and the I. It goes from he made a choice to I made a choice.
I usually don't have time to write.
Right. So it changes person, right?
Right.
And that was confusing. It works, but it was confusing to me and it made me listen. So it made it a difficult listen. I had to go, I have to listen to it again in order to understand what he is trying to say, because it did not kind of like what I said about I am. Sometimes the words are not the words that we would use, but we have to understand the words that the artist is using. It made it a difficult listen.
Oh, that shift in perspective.
Right. Or was it? It took me a couple times to listen to be able to go. So it was a hard listen from that regard. And then being here when he recorded it, there's a point in the poem where he stutters. There's a stutter, the whole dick in your face kind of thing. Okay. And he stutters. And I don't know if you weren't here for that one.
That was before my time.
Okay, yeah. So I was working the board, and I was like, somebody else was sitting in here with me, though, when he did it. Because we both looked at him like, did you mean that? We didn't know if he was really nervous when he recorded the piece. Okay. And so we didn't know if that stutter was planned in the piece or not. And he said, yes, it was. It was planned. So I understand it now listening to it, but again, that creative choice made it a harder piece for me to listen to.
Oh, interesting.
Now, all of that said, in the package, you've got a piece about a young boy who makes a mistake, goes to prison, comes out, sees his father for the first time in the casket when he's dead.
There's some hard stuff in this poem.
And the creative choices that he made, the person and the stuttering, that made it hard to listen to. It's a hard poem to listen to because of subject matter.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
And to me, connecting those dots plays that, and it plays into the fact that this poem should make you feel uncomfortable. It should be hard to listen to. And all of that together, whether it was intended or not, that's how I took it. And it makes it that much more of a powerful piece because of those creative choices.
Well, Epic Jones talks about that art shouldn't be simply decoration. It's not just about beauty. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, good.
Good, yeah, and that's the thing. Did he make those creative choices to do that? I don't know, but it's definitely effective in this case, and it adds to the fact that, like you had said initially, Rachel, you don't need it. You get the picture of his life, and it is a hard thing to get and understand. But those little creative choices help paint that picture even harder, in my opinion.
And in his essence, and this is a word he coined, and he uses it in his episode,
artivism.
He considers himself an artivist, and that is the essence of artivist, making you uncomfortable and making his point.
He says it in this poem.
Yeah.
He says artivist in this poem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the essence of what that is.
So, it was, surprisingly, again, the shortness of the poem and the concisiveness of it. This is one of the ones that, after we heard it yesterday, you asked to hear it again. I remember we played it twice.
I had to.
And then, but this was the one when I laid down last night to go to sleep. This is the one that I went, I need to really make sure I articulate how I say this, because I'm not saying, the person was messed or the stuttering made it hard to listen to. It's not that. It made it more authentic, maybe. But I wanted to make sure when I talked about this poem today for the show that I didn't make it sound like it was creative choice, that I didn't like it, because I did. I think it made it more effective and reinforced what he was trying to say.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
well, then I'm glad I chose it.
Yeah, for sure.
Good for
I
you,
am
Paul.
too.
Good for me. Another pat on my back.
Should we pat him on the back?
Well, thank you, King Musa.
Thank you, King Musa. Yeah, for what you do.
He really should be the one that we're thanking.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should be. Yeah, I mean, he's out there doing the work. And the thing is, I'll say this, there's a lot of humble artists. There's a lot of artists that will talk about their process and stuff like that. King Musa may be the most humble guy we have had on the show. He is just a really nice, humble fucking guy.
I was standing next to him at an art exhibit during Black History Month, looking at paintings, works of art on the wall, and talking about them, and didn't realize till later when Nathan Taylor told me those were his pieces that I loved and was talking to him about. Yeah. He did not make that apparent in any way, and they were phenomenal works of art.
How much more humble can you know what I mean?
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly.
It's just saying it. All right, are you ready to cry, Paul?
And it'll be 3 days in a row then.
This is one of your poems. This is non-consensual smile from Callie Hunter.
Non-consensual smile. The first time I smiled when I didn't want to, I let them in. Space that wasn't theirs, given without my consent. I pulled my skirt down to my knees for them, and then, when they asked, I pulled it up high. And they smiled. And they meant it. And I smiled. And I didn't. Smile, but don't smirk. Open your big, beautiful eyes. Wide, wide, wider. Let them look, but never linger, unless invited upon their request, and then always accept. Disrespectful girls decline. Let your eyes shine in their direction, but never twinkle on their own. Do not let your skin suggest what they will suggest you show them later. Help them avert their eyes from the curve of your breast to the dirty magazine they hid in the freezer while their wife sings Amazing Grace in the choir. It's okay. They'll repent later, and they will be forgiven. Until you accidentally wear that V-neck you bought from the Gap that shows just a sliver of the cleavage you got down on your knees and prayed for every night since you turned 13. My dear stumbling block, you will stumble their blocks free in the bathroom stall beneath the cross hanging above the toilet. You won't know. You won't be there. But it is your fault. Your eyes lingered. Your skin showed. You smiled and giggled, and they imagined only what the blueprint of your improperly covered body provided. and all will be forgiven for them, but not for you. You are the temptation. You are the smile. You are the skin and the hips and the twinkle. How dare you decline, you tease? How dare you accept, you whore? It's okay. You don't need to be forgiven for the smile you lost on the bathroom floor.
I was talking about Moose's poem, how that one was a hard one to hear, hard one to get through. The difference here is this is a hard poem to hear because of the content, but it is an easy poem to listen to from a delivery standpoint. Yeah. So I'm going to start, even though this is on your list, Paul, I'm going to start with Rachel.
That's
with this
fine
one.
with me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there. Like every single one of Callie's pieces I've heard, it like really hits me.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
that's why he went to you first.
Yeah. So, well, especially because I remember in her episode, she mentioned she's actively trying to heal from some religious trauma, and there's a lot of patriarchy going around with it. So I just find it really relatable how, growing up in that kind of religious patriarchy environment, you're expected to just be very in line, in shape, don't talk to any kind of boy, and you have to be very in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's like Christianity brought to you by the people who developed the chastity belt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But then, you kind of get into the whole, like, okay, so how many priests are, pedophiles? How many youth group leaders get with one of the girls as soon as she turns 18? These are all very common experiences throughout and even, and I guess it's just because of my kind of algorithms, I've seen so many stories of girls who, whether they were hurt by some way by the men or they were just wearing a tank top, like women will come in the church, will come up and start going off about how they're such a whore and stuff. And then she's like, yo, I was 16 years old and I was wearing a tank top. Like, maybe you should.
I was dressed to be comfortable for me.
Right.
And okay, so it really kind of brings me to, I really don't consider myself religious, but, kind of spiritual, just as everybody here. But the one thing I do appreciate about Christianity is Jesus as a figure. And I'll say this until my face goes blue. Jesus is wasted on the Christians because he's such a powerful figure in everything he teaches, or taught. What I'm getting at is when he told men basically like, oh yeah, if you're like ogling at women, maybe you should pluck out your eyes. That sounds like a you problem.
Wow.
So that's just goes into the church, like as a structure and the way they...
The institution.
The
institution itself.
Yeah, the religious institutions is what I'm really against, not necessarily the theology. But they really weaponize patriarchy to control women from childhood. And then, away from the church, just society in general, she touches on the whole, you're either a whore or a prude,
Yeah.
Right. That's the patriarchy imposing that you can't win situation on women. Yeah.
It's all lose-lose. Like just the end line about, picking up your smile off the bathroom floor and stuff. It was like, I was like, damn, okay, I felt that. I felt that one.
Yeah.
Again, just for me, it was a little too relatable. So...
Right. Well, and the way patriarchy makes everything the woman's fault. And I mean, we've been picking on Christianity, but part of my problem with, and I need to talk to a Muslim about this, is that it puts the burden of male sexuality on women by controlling what they wear. I mean, they wear the burqa and the hijab in order to deal with men's predatoriness and supposedly to keep men from being that way. Wait, so whose problem is it? To me, that's institutionalizing men's failure to control our own issue.
And here's the thing about that. So years ago when I was in college, I took a world religion class, and I really wish I would have kept the textbook. So there were like different sections, and each chapter was, a different religion. So one of the sections in every chapter was viewing the religion through a feminist lens. And yeah, surprise, every single organized religion out there is misogynistic. Like religion as an institution, one of its functions is to control women. And again, it's not just Christians, it's not just the Muslims. You know, there's even religions that, you know, are a little less popular, but they're still like, well, you know, women are great, but you're not allowed to, you know, like be teachers or...
I'd say with the exception of the Eastern religions, I think, you know, your Buddhism, the interturning Eastern faiths, and maybe you call them philosophies and not religions. I would say organized religion.
Yes, that's
organized religion is very discriminatory toward women, I would say.
I am going to stick up for contemporary Unitarian Universalism, and I'm going to confess that is my religion. I mean, it has definitely embodied patriarchy in the past, but I think in its modern manifestation, it minimizes it.
I think it's doing better. You've got female priests, right?
Yeah, we had 3 ministers on the dais this last weekend, and 2 of them were women.
But with regards to this poem, I think what this poem said to me, what I got out of this, Christians are not always good people, and sometimes they are the worst. Honestly, that's what I get. The other thing is, especially when they hide behind or weaponize their faith.
Right. Well, you and I were talking about this morning.
Yeah.
Anything weaponized is the problem.
It's dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Trauma weaponized.
Sexuality, race.
Right.
Anything,
all of it, when it gets weaponized, in other words, turned into a tool to use against people.
And this is the thing that I like the most about this poem. Is who wrote it, how she delivers it. She is the perfect person to tell this story because she's not weaponizing it.
No.
She is telling it from an authentic place and an experienced place and a valid place.
Right.
When she tells it, you believe it, it's authentic, and you're not going to argue with her. You're not going to argue with her.
I'm going to go back and listen to it again, but I don't see a lot of loaded words in it.
No.
She's relaying observations.
Yes.
You know, when she's talking about the man putting his porn magazine in the freezer while otherwise being a holy person, you know, that's an observation. She doesn't hit it with adjectives and adverbs that are emotionally laden.
Because she doesn't need to. That, I think, where the poem is concerned, that is the crafting. Because it would have been really easy to do that, right?
Right.
It would have
to
been really
something
easy
as
to do that.
Disgusting behavior. She doesn't do that.
Yeah, it would have been really easy
she
to
shows
do that.
you.
Yeah.
And my line from this is early on, the first time I smiled when I didn't want to, I let them in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a gut punch.
Tone setting, right? That's all the time we have this week for part 3 of our 4-part series for National Poetry Month, Favorite Poems. Tune in next week for the next segment. See you then. Peace.
Hi, this is DG Clearing on Versed Broadcasting on WBOM, Full Service Radio. Here is some of my original poetry. Pencil eyes. You stared at me with those pencil eyes, and all I could think about was the silence of the music. As I stood there with $1 in my hand and a pocket full of change. It was so cold inside. My body shook. It shook from the frostbite of your words. You told me you no longer loved me. Tipping my hat to hide the tears of my heart. I felt all alone, riding on the plains of loneliness. Walking out the door, watching you over my shoulder, I could see the smirk, the very smirk on your face as your new flame put their arm around your waist, pulling you in like a calf on a rope, not knowing just how wild and untamed you are. Like a stallion gone crazy, a stallion gone crazy with the fever. Now Now that's all left of me. Now that's all left of me are the words. Now that's all left of me are the words in a song on Tin Pan Alley, where the down and out beg. They beg for $1. They beg for $1. They beg for $1 a quarter. They beg for $1 a quarter or a dime.